Hendo,
What's going on?
it's you.
It is me.
It's you coming in hot from the Bat Cave.
I'm very hot from the bat cave. I'm just trying to find out why I look like shit. That's terrible.
You look amazing. You look like you're in a little lair there with some mood red
I
lighting.
know. It's my camera settings, I think, are all just weird. Let me see if I can fix that.
I'm all about it. I think leave it as is.
It's very dark and seductive and all that sort of thing, isn't it?
Oh, well, you said it. You said it.
Yeah. How's your day going, man?
Good. Yeah. Very good.
There we go.
Did you? Oh, there you go. That's a bit better. Did you have the Indies today?
Last 3 days, mate.
So I finished today?
Days. Finished this afternoon. Yeah, I got out of there at about 5 o'clock. So I'm literally only just out and pour myself a beer and away we go. What do you got
Very
there?
nice. Well, you wait for this. Wait, you tell me what you got, and then I'll tell you what I got.
This is actually a Helles that I homebrewed.
Oh wow!
And those who know me well know that I'm a bit passionate about brewing lager at this point in my brewing career, and it's next on my list of awards to win is to win an award for a Munich Helles, like a pretty clean pale lager.
Nice.
It's one I entered into the QABC homebrewing competition a couple of weeks ago. It's the very first time I'd actually entered a homebrew comp and got a 41 out of 50, which was a really amazing score.
Nice.
That's still not top three.
Oh shit!
People who brewed way better lagers than that. So, but I was still pretty chuffed anyway. So it's all good.
Very nice. Well, I'm going. Well, I was going to say opposite end of the scale, but I'm not going to say that because I'm sure your lager's delicious. I got this bottle here that Kirsty from work gave me, and it literally has nothing on it. It's got something about a couple of guys, Sam and Chris, catching up and making a beer, and that's all I know. But apparently it's a wildflower.
Oh, okay.
And
Chris, as in Christopher, as in Topher.
I don't know, man. But I did suggest that it wouldn't be a good idea to drink this all by myself, but then she said it was only like 3 standard drinks, so why not? I'll give it a go.
Oh, mate, just go for it, mate. Drink 2.
Holy shit. No, I've only got 1.
Oh.
Wow, it smells amazing. I had a realization. You know, in the last podcast we did, randomly my dog started humping my leg.
Yes, that's right. I do recall.
And I didn't put 2 and 2 together until about 15 minutes ago when I was on the phone, and he was chilled out the whole time until I was on the phone, and then he started humping my leg again.
Right.
And now I realize that whenever I'm talking, he wants to hump my leg.
Okay. Is he humping your leg now?
100%.
That was quick.
Yep. So
it's right.
If you do most of the talking, I think that's going to be good.
You think that your dog would take you out for a dinner and drinks first or something like that? And
he's a bulldog. He knows how to get his own way.
Awesome.
All right. Well, first of all, we should let people know that we are now on Spotify and Stitcher and Google, which is cool.
Is that right?
Awesome. Yes. So those links are up on the website, bossandthebrewer.com. We're very fucking organized for people with one podcast.
And you pulled that together so quickly. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually very, very simple. It's very cool how easy this stuff has got. But so yeah, if you're into Spotify, you can get us on there, or if you're into Android like you are, Stitcher and Google. So that's easy.
That's me. Yeah. Good. On Google, does that mean that I can use the Google Music app to get podcasts now?
I think there must be a Google. I actually don't know, but I think it's called Google Podcast. So there must be a Google Podcast app, or maybe it is on Google Music. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out.
And we have an email list with 5 people on there, and 2 of them are me. So
wow,
3 real people.
Holy moly! I'm not even on it. I should probably sign up.
100%. You should get on it. We're on the up and up, Hendo. You got to start somewhere.
Yep. Absolutely. It reminds me when I first became a professional brewer, and I released my first commercially released beer, and we did the debut of this beer at Chloe's Bar at Young and Jackson in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
And nice. This was like over 10 years ago now. And one of the guys that was there was James, and he had this blog called Beer Bar Band, and he was like there telling me how he had a beer blog, and I'm like, oh yeah, cool. He goes, I've got 12 subscribers, and I went, that's amazing. Keep doing it. And he ended up blowing up when craft beer became a thing. So, yeah, it's got to start somewhere, don't you?
100%. Yeah, actually, that's funny. I was yesterday. I was reading because I'm doing a well, I probably shouldn't say anyway. At some point in the future, we're going to do another crowdfunding. So I started thinking about all of our content and looking back over the past and how much things have changed. And I came across that article that 250 Beers wrote about us.
Yeah.
And I was just reflecting on the fact that like this whole entire company that now employs like 75 people would not exist if that guy didn't randomly write that article.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's crazy. And that's why I'm always like, create some content. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's a good message because you never know.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got some headlines to read through, and I know you're keen to talk about the indies. So there's not a whole lot this week, to be honest. The indies is a big one. Stone and Wood ACCC investigation. I thought maybe we'd touch on that if we feel like it. The Spinifex crowdfunding, if crowdfunding comes up. The little grifter Clipack and Paktech thing that they put together, I thought is quite cool, and we might.
Yep.
And then I saw the IBA announce a community marketing campaign for kind of awareness around independence in beer, which might be an interesting conversation given what's going on in Stone and Wood. But why don't we start with the indies? So what's been happening there?
Yeah. Well, I've just spent the last 3 days judging 1,400 beers. And not personally, I didn't drink all 1,400 myself.
I was going to say, you seem fine for someone who's been drinking beer all day.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty mentally drained right now because, judging beers, you got to have a really high level of concentration, be very in tune with your senses and that sort of thing. And we were judging about 50 to 70 beers a day. And you have to judge your last one as good as you judge your first one, So when I get to the end of it, I just have to just sort of shut down and turn on the PlayStation and do something mindless for a while and that sort of thing. So,
yeah,
but it was a lot of fun.
I should say thanks for doing that, because I know for people who, I guess, don't understand how this works, like companies like ours pay a lot of money to enter these awards, and they are a big deal. They're kind of like a useful thing to get feedback from people, but it's also like the independent brewers are always looking for a way to kind of improve their brewing, but also get some attention and some marketing and whatnot. So you're saying that is a good thing, because it means that, when you're paying quite a lot of money to submit these awards, that the people who are judging them are taking it seriously.
Absolutely. We had 8 tables of about 4 or 5 judges, about 40 judges there, a whole bunch of stewards that we couldn't have done the competition without them, and some cracking beers, really, really good beers. I think the standard of the beers it just continues to get better and better. Awesome. It was a lot of fun. It's like, the way that it works, is you've got like a judging area, and you've got a stewarding area, and judges aren't allowed in the stewarding area. And so as a beer judge, you actually don't see the labels or the brewery that the beers come from or anything like that. And you just get, basically what you have is you have a style guideline, which is basically some words that describe the style of beer that you're judging, and a liquid in a glass, and you don't know who it's from. And all you got to do is you got to match how well that liquid matches those words. And if there's any, off flavors or anything like that, every beer that gets put in front of you for judging, you assume that it's 100% perfect beer, and you deduct points off, and it lands where it sort of lands. Then, depending on how good the beer is, it's awarded a medal, a gold, silver, or bronze medal, or no medal. That doesn't imply first, second, or third in this particular competition. So it's all based on
in a lot of competitions too. And I think that's an important thing, because we want to make sure that when you get a gold medal, you're not kind of saying, I won the gold medal, like you came first, because it is obviously an awesome thing to achieve, but there can be multiple gold medals. So there is a difference between a gold medal and a trophy.
That's right. There can be, multiple gold medals or none.
Yeah.
And And so, it's sort of basically winning a gold medal basically means that you have a beer of a very high standard and that sort of thing. And so, we sort of, we judge beers in a panel of 4 or 5 judges at a table. We'll assess each beer sort of individually, make our own notes and assessment, and then we'll sort of come back together and discuss the beer as a panel and come up with a panel decision and score, and decide what medal that beer is going to get and that sort of thing. If a beer wins a gold medal, it comes back out at the end of the competition for trophy rounds. So trophies are basically the next step above a gold medal, and they're basically the best of the best. The beers don't, we did trophies happen this afternoon. The trophies are more fun to judge because you don't have to rejudge the beer. It's already got a gold medal, so you don't have to reassess it. But you have all of the beers lined up that are in contention for the trophy, and you just pick your favorite.
Yeah, nice.
That's really how it comes down to when it comes to trophies. Which one do you think is well made, or has that certain sort of X factor in it, and that sort of thing. So it was good fun. We had some. I won't sort of give away. I don't want to give away sort of what won trophies, but there was some, like, I judged some trophies in the hybrid class this afternoon.
Yeah.
Which covers all of the beers, herb and spice beer and coffee beer and chili beer, but it also covers gluten-free and non-alcoholic beer and all that sort of stuff all gets put in there.
Yeah.
And there's some real surprises coming with that. And I don't know who the beers are, but we picked some trophies from certain categories that we were very, very, very happy with and that sort of thing. So
that's cool. Yeah, it always is a bit of a lottery sometimes, isn't it? If you kind of, especially at the end, if you're choosing between a lot of beers that are very good, it's at some point, is it sort of a bit personal preference?
For trophies, absolutely. Yeah. It has to be, because there's no other way to assess the beer. It's already been assessed. It's already been given a gold medal. And I remember, about sort of 6 or 7 years ago, back before I became a judge and I was stewarding at the AIBAs, we were doing trophy judging. I was bringing beers out to the judges, and during the trophy judging, one of the judges, he was from Belgium. He was just there, and he was just silently contemplating this beer that he was sort of smelling and tasting and admiring and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, you just see this just single tear just come down his face, fucking like that. And I just went, "Are you okay?" And he was just like, "This beer is so perfect. It's too perfect. It shouldn't exist." And he was just like absolutely in tears about how perfect this beer was. Wow. Now the thing is, I was a steward, and I knew what beer it was.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Won the best wheat beer trophy. That beer was Weihenstephan Vitus.
Nice.
I love that beer. It's so good. And so it's actually a beer that makes someone cry. What are you doing there?
I'm letting the dog out because he's staring at the glass wall, and I'm actually
Ready
really hoping he goes outside, because if he goes outside, it means he can't possibly hump my leg. So my leg is getting itchy. It's becoming a problem. But I got a brave face here. I'm gonna pretend like nothing's happening. This beer is fucking amazing.
What's in it? Is any fruit in it, or is it just barrel?
This out. You're getting old when you have to take 30 seconds to actually view the text. By the way, Wildflower obviously gives zero fucks about label regulations. It literally has nothing on it. Barrel matured Australian wild ale made in collaboration with Sam and Chris Greenwood, made from regenerative organic malted schooner barley and raw hard Yipti wheat. I got it because it's got wheat in it, and Kirsty's gluten-free. That's the only reason I got this beer.
Yeah, so you could keep it to yourself.
Old man saltbush and wheat straw from the farm. Made in, I think it's just a sour. I don't think there's any fruit. It's fucking outstanding.
Sounds like locally grown and malted barley and wheat in it. That's a lot of hard work gone into that beer, if that's the case.
Yeah. I think she's part of the that kind of super fan club or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's going to be mine. Maybe brewers, they when they get to retirement, they go into the, slow beer thing.
Yes.
And I don't see myself doing that, as I'm not hugely into I like sour beers, on occasion, but I'm not like fully into them and that sort of thing.
Well, it's quite difficult. Like we found with AWOL, it's not something that people drink a lot of. So you got to factor that into the plans.
Yeah, that's right. And they're not made to a schedule. The beer's ready when it tells you it's ready, and and you can't
to predict.
You can't hurry it up. So yeah.
Before we move on, one question about the judging thing. When you're sitting, I assume when you're sitting around the table judging these beers, the other people at these, the other judges, right? Generally,
sure. Gubsy is there.
Yeah. But I mean, like at your table, you basically know everyone at that table. Like that. You've seen them at other awards. Like kind of, is there like a kind of a hierarchy of this person's palate is slightly, they detect this better than other people, like that kind of thing?
Not really. I think one of the good things about judging is that there's everybody's sense of smell and taste and assessment of skill is varied, and I think that brings different perspectives into how each beer is assessed. And someone will notice something that somebody else on the panel doesn't, and I don't think there's not really any sort of pecking order there. We have what's called table captains, which are judges who lead the panel discussion and that sort of thing.
Right.
Like I'm a table captain for the Royal Queensland Food and Wine Show Beer Awards because I'm on the organising committee. But on this in this competition, I wasn't. So there's no real pecking order there or anything like that. But what I will tell you, though, is that there's globally, right, there is this subculture of beer judges who just, travel all over the world and judge it at beer competitions. I've made lots of friends all over the world judging beer. And once you get into that scene, holy shit, it's a lot of fun because whenever you go, like it was Lee from White Lies Brewing who got me into judging in Japan.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Back in I think 2018, I think was the first time they went over to Japan. 2017, I think it was. And meeting all these judges from, Mexico and the UK and Spain and the US and all that sort of stuff. And they're all just, great friends with each other. It's a lot of great camaraderie. And then after that, once they get to know you, you get invited to judge everywhere, like yes, I was getting invited to, like last year before COVID, I had locked in like the whole year's worth of travel and beer judging. I was supposed to go to Korea for the inaugural Korean International Beer Awards in April.
That would have been cool.
And then to fly to Vietnam to do a speaking tour there, and then to go to Philippines and do a similar thing there. And then I got invited back to another competition in Mexico, but I couldn't go to that one.
I think you're just flexing now, Ando, to be honest. So
yeah, it is. It's a bit
uncomfortable.
But it's a shitload of fun though, from a judge's perspective, or like you get looked after as a judge, like you have to get yourself there. Like if I go to judge in Japan, I've got to fly myself there. But then they put you up and they feed you and they water you and they take you on tours and they treat you really, really well.
This is turning into an interview with Hendo, but I'm actually curious. What's the perception of Aussie beer judges when you guys went to Japan? Like, are they looking at us as being sort of further along than them, or the other way around?
It's compared to Japanese judges. So, okay, that's a really interesting one because in Japan, they don't have a real big craft beer scene there. And they're trying really hard to build up. They have major problems with liquor licensing and the definition of beer and all that sort of stuff over there, and tax. So they're trying to build their craft beer scene and craft beer quality and that sort of thing. So they actually get all these judges from all over the world there because they want to teach their own judges how to assess beer, right? It's a real big skills transfer thing. Yeah.
So they respect our what we're doing, I suppose, is the.
Oh, absolutely. And then some of the Japanese judges, they come over and they're observers at the AIBAs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a real, knowledge transfer going on. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I got one more question, even though this is not supposed to be an interview with Hendo
about the Hendo show. Yeah,
about judging. But the question about the Indies was: is there judges this year from interstate?
South Australia, and that was it. Yeah.
Right.
So what had happened was the judging was originally always supposed to be here in Brizzy, before BrewCon. Then because of COVID,
BrewCon was Sunny Coast, right?
Was on the Sunshine Coast. Yeah, but the judging for the Indies was supposed to be just before BrewCon, and then all the awards were going to be announced at the gala thing at the end of BrewCon, right? But because of COVID, BrewCon got cancelled. The Indies got pushed back a month. And what was supposed to happen was all these state-based judging panels.
Yes.
But because New South Wales and Victoria were in extended lockdowns, only Queensland and South Australia, and because Western Australia has really strict travel restrictions at the moment, they were the only two states where we could draw a talent pool for judges. So mostly Queensland judges, with about sort of 10 or 20% of them coming from South Australia.
Nice. So, it might be a blessing in disguise that they've kicked off the Queensland Beer Awards a couple of years ago, and everyone's kind of in the rhythm of doing that.
Absolutely. We've done a great job of building up a really good judging talent pool here. And, we're very grateful that the industry has entrusted the Queensland judging, and brewing community to judge the Indies. The standard of the judging was extraordinarily high. It's just worked out really well.
Nice.
Really, really
well. I definitely should know the answer to this question, but I legitimately don't know the answer. When are the winners announced?
I don't know.
Right.
I asked that question this afternoon because, like, Josh from Hop On Brewery Tours is the chief steward.
Yeah,
and we're doing all this judging. I'm walking out the door. He's like, "Oh, I'm going home now." What's the announcement? And that she didn't know. So,
is there an actual, because there's no BrewCon? Is there an actual Indies kind of event?
It will be an awards thing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be live streamed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like they kind of did last year. They did this live stream awards thing, and so there'll be Prof and Tiff and all that. Prof and not Tiff, Kiralee.
No, wasn't that the ABAs? Wait.
Yeah, well, they'll do something like that again.
I really hope it's not like that. that mid-COVID ABAs was pretty savage.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's not like that.
We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, thanks for doing that. That's very cool. Moving on to the next topic here, I've got Stone and Wood ACCC investigation. I kind of just put this on here because we actually got emailed about this to kind of put an opinion forward, I suppose, which I thought was interesting, and I ignored it because I'm busy doing work and other things, and I don't feel like I have a strong opinion that would add to the conversation, but I feel like it'll probably go nowhere. Do you think any differently?
What are they asking for? Whether they believe that Lion buying Stone and Wood will decrease competition in the industry?
Yeah.
On the request for information there and that sort of thing, I would totally encourage anyone, whether you're a consumer or a brewer or publican or something like that, anywhere involved in the industry, to respond to it and put your point of view forward. Well, it's a government. ACCC is a government department, and they can't just act on intuition and anecdotes and all that sort of thing. They have to hear from the industry, to gauge the impact that the Stone and Wood sale to Lion will have.
What impact do you think? Like, it's hard for me to look at that whole thing as someone who owns, owns part of these days, another independent brewery. As it's fine. It's fine. I think we'll be fine. I think the independents will be fine. There'll be other indies coming through.
Yeah, the issue is taps at pubs. That's really what it is. Hey,
aren't taps going to open up as a result of this?
Yes and no. So I anticipate what will happen is that those Stone and Wood has always had the independent tap in because no brewery can tie and contract 100% of the taps. That is anti-competitive, and that's already been. The major
let's be honest, 80% of the taps is also a little bit anti-competitive, but
absolutely, but they just can't do 100%.
Yeah.
And so you go into, you walk into a pub and you can tell if it's a Lion pub or a CUB pub by the types of beers that it's got. If you've got, if it's got VB, Carlton Draught, Pirate Life, Mount Goat and Bolter and all that sort of thing, that's a CUB pub. But if it's got Tui's New, Forex, Little Creatures, and that sort of thing, that's a Lion pub. And so typically where Stone and Wood Pacific Ale, the biggest selling beer, has been positioned is it's always fit very nicely as a very, very cost-effective beer for those publicans in that as the not the tied tap.
Right. Yeah. It's
Now,
the
so
go-to indie tap. I mean, I suppose Cooper's and I suppose they took on a lot of the Cooper's taps, didn't they?
Well, they did. They did, certainly, right? So have a think about what happens now that you've got Stone and Wood Pacific Ale as the non-contracted offering in a Lion pub, right? Yeah. Now they're touching that 100% of the taps.
Right, so it opens up opportunities for indies.
What it means is that the publican or the Lion rep has to make a choice as to which beer of his own gets dropped.
Yeah.
So that they can't contract all the taps. Right. And same thing's going to happen to those pubs that are CUB, tied, right?
Well, they're going to drop pubs. They're going to drop the Stone.
They'll drop the Lion, right? Yeah. And so.
But doesn't that just mean more taps for indies?
Yeah, possibly. I think Coopers will see an uptick. Would be my bet.
Yeah.
First and foremost, before
Cooper's Pacific Ale.
Oh no, I can't do it. But
they did it. They did it.
Yeah. I know they did it.
They changed the name of the beer to the Pacific Ale. Anyway, Stone and Wood founders are cool with that now, apparently, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, am I thinking too short term? Thinking, okay, all the CUB pubs are going to be looking for independent beers for their 20%, so their Stone and Wood taps, and all the Lion pubs, they're going to take off one of their shitty Lion beers, put Stone and Wood in their Lion taps, and then they're going to free up an indie tap in the Lion pubs. And isn't that all good news?
I mean, you're an independent brewer. Have you got a strategy to take those taps yourself?
Well, not a strategy, but yeah. I mean, like when we go into these, like our entire existence, we go into a venue with 2 independent taps, and we're up against Bolter and Stone and Wood. Up until a couple of years ago, and it's like, we'll do our best to compete, but good fucking luck competing against Bolter and Stone and Wood. So I think we'll get more taps, at least in the short term.
Yeah. I think, like I said the last episode, I think what will happen to Pacific Ale, Stone and Wood is mostly a keg brewery. It's mostly about on premise. It's mostly about kegs on tap in pubs, right? And far more than any other independent brewery. That's what they've been all about since day one, and that sort of thing. High volume, low margin beer on tap.
Jamie Cook once at the Abers, I hit him up and he gave me that advice. He said, get taps, put most of your beer into kegs, and we fucking tried, but it's just he wasn't competing. I mean, I don't know how they did it, but it's you go into a pub with 2 taps, and Bolter and Stone and Wood are on, it's very, very hard to get taps. And turned out for us, there happened to be a global pandemic where no pubs were buying beer and only packaged beer was selling. And that worked out very well. But generally, I think that was the go-to kind of good advice, like sell as much as you can locally and as much as you can in keg. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, Pacific Ale is a very, very cost-effective beer to make. There's not a lot of ingredients in it. It's great. They get a lot of flavor out of very little ingredients and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they're able to sort of, and they position the ABV of the product so that the excise is pretty low as well. That's a big cost of the production. and they just focused on one beer, is their tap beer, you know. They had the lager and the cloud catcher and all that sort of stuff, but it's always about Pacific Ale. And I think, and going back to the ACCC, that's the thing that the ACCC is going to be interested in, is mainly about taps in pubs, and Lions now influence over that because they've effectively bought 1% of market share.
But see, 1%, that's where I think the whole thing falls down. Like it seems like a waste of time for anyone to fill in any information when they're approving a buyout from Asahi to buy CUB. And now we're talking about a buyout for 1% of market share. It just seems like there's no chance.
Well, it makes a difference when you have a duopoly, effectively, you know. That's where the ACCC are focusing is taps in pubs. It's not small pack. It's not cans and bottles in bottle shops and stuff like that. It's about taps in pubs. It's what it's always been about with the ACCC and the beer industry and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we make a little prediction? I predict it'll go nowhere. What's your prediction?
As in the investigation?
Yeah.
Look, there'll be some submissions. They'll do a bit of a song and dance, but yeah, I'm with you. They're just kind of, I think it's the ACCC trying to justify their existence, right, and sort of going, we're doing our job. We're making sure there's competition in the market, and it'll get fucking rubber stamped, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. I've got this grifter clip packing thing, which is, I mean, it's probably not the best name for something, but I was quite interested in this.
What's
I haven't actually clip packing.
Sounds like IKEA.
It does a little bit, which is probably good.
Sounds like a
Swedish
couch
design.
to sit on. Yeah. I bought a new clip packing.
I don't know what kind of couches you're sitting on, Endo, but all right.
It's not a fucking clip packing.
Not in that dungeon you're living in there right now with the red lighting and your clip packing.
This is my OnlyFans
wow
studio.
Yeah, right. How many subscribers are you working with there? Not
zero
many.
at the moment. Right. Yeah,
okay. About as many subscribers as we have on our mail.
Yeah. So what do I think of it? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, no, this is actually interesting to me because we're investing in a whole new packaging line, and at the time of making the decisions around it, we kind of knew the plastic Paktechs, which are reusable, and they're made out of recycled plastic, but they're still plastic, and we pump out a shitload of them. And we committed to those because there was really no other good solution. And we're actually building our own Paktech applicator at Black Ops, which is probably a little bit out there.
Stubbsy showed me some of the videos of it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I did have a look around. I actually spoke to James from Stone and Wood at the time about, the decision-making that went into their kind of, I think they use the West Rock, the kind of the wrap.
Yeah, the wrap.
And with that thing, you have to hire the whole machine, and they give you all the packaging and everything. It's a whole.
You got to buy the packaging from them and all that sort of stuff. Yes.
Yeah, and we looked into the more sustainable ones, but those things were just really useless. But this thing from Grifter looked interesting because it did look like it was legitimately kind of made out of cardboard, and there was some branding on there, which was nice. But it was also applied automatically, which is a very important thing. Once you're pumping out beer at that scale, you can't go with options where you're pushing it on by your hand.
Yeah.
I want to get my hands on one. I don't have my hands on one, but what do you think? I think it looks quite cool.
Oh, look, I'm not a fan of Paktechs purely from the environmental perspective, and I'm pretty sure that most brewers in the industry would agree that they use Paktechs very begrudgingly. They're pretty significant. They're very good at what they do.
Right.
They grip the top of a can like an absolute boss,
very good.
And you can't, if you want to pull it, everyone's done it. You pull a can out of a Paktech, it's fucking hard, and
it's like a test of your manlyhood. It's like, if you can pull it out of a Paktech, and then if you
pull it out of the Paktech and you'll bump something on the other side of the bloody fridge and that sort of thing and knock over something, and so they're very good at their job, but they're quite an inordinate amount of plastic in them.
And they're not cheap.
And they're not cheap. And I think Grifter was saying that they use 5 ton a year of Paktechs. They said in their article, I think on Brews News or something like that when they announced it, 5 tons of plastic per year.
How big is Grifter?
They're big in Sydney,
right?
You know, that's most of the Sydney breweries have pretty deep sort of local distribution and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, in the majors and stuff like that. I don't know what they're doing literage. I wouldn't speculate on that, but you know, with the Paktechs and stuff like that, they're just not great, you know. And yes, they're made from recycled plastic, and yes, they're recyclable, but we can't.
Well, they're reusable. They're not recyclable, are they?
Yeah, we can't recycle plastic in this country.
No.
Right?
You can reuse them, but I mean, how many of those things actually get reused?
Yeah, I think there's a Dan Murphy's store.
There is, there's Dan Murphy's trialing a thing. We've been doing it for a long time. I know, like Ballistic, we're doing it for a while. Like we have a thing where people can bring it back, but I mean, the amount of beer we sell versus the amount of Paktechs we get back is, you know, it's not a meaningful.
It highlights a greater problem around the packaging life cycle and that sort of thing. You know, what do you do? Do you put a bloody container deposit on a Paktech as well? It's just going to be.
I think that container
ridiculous.
Deposit thing's just a scam.
Oh, it is a scam. Totally, yeah. I agree.
But well, I mean, I think I commend them. You see all these breweries getting these grants for research. I mean, this project seems to be 100% research. So if someone can figure out a way to do it with paper and keep the branding on there, then
Well, you got to think about like the very tough conditions that are something that holds a 4-pack or 6-pack of cans or bottles together needs to go through. Yeah, that's right. They're cold, they're wet. They get put in a refrigerator. They go out on a truck. They have to get picked up by the customer to take it home. They don't want it to fall apart. They go through quite, you know, that job of holding a 4-pack or 6-pack of beers together is really, really hard. And you need something that's very rugged and durable. If you think about what have 4-packs and 6-packs been in the past, you know, think about the different forms, right? We've used to, when it was bottles, we used to have the cardboard baskets and stuff like that. And they were recyclable, and that's great. But then you've got the Kister, the shrink wrap plastic that VB and that sort of thing usually is, right?
They still use them?
Yep. The Forks still use the Kisters. Yep.
See that's way worse, because that shit definitely ends up in the ocean, like killing animals, like straight.
Oh shit, yeah. Turtles eat that. Totally. Yeah. But the thing is though, if you talk about the functionality of it, the Kister does the job. It's sturdy. It can be wet. It doesn't degrade.
I think the Paktech does the best job though, because
absolutely
the Paktechs you can carry it around no matter how many beers you've had out of the thing. With 100% certainty, the beers aren't going to fall out of it. It's a very, very functional thing.
Absolutely. And I think that with this Klipaken thing, you know, I think what they're doing is that they can, you know, even 80% replicate the functionality of a Paktech and have it in a recyclable format. That's a win, you know.
That's Elon, by the way.
Look at Elon.
Yeah, I
think I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah, for all our 6 listeners, follow Elon the Pocket Bully on Instagram. Yes, you're famous. Now go away and stop humping my leg. And that's the reason I asked a question about what size. I said go away, dude. This is very uncomfortable. You're way too big now. You're not cute anymore. How big Grifter are, because like, are they actually distributing beer through the major bottle shops with these Klipaken things?
Well, that's the other bit of functionality that your 4-pack or your 6-pack older needs to do, is it needs to have a barcode on it, so that when you buy it at the shop, that someone can scan it with a gun and they know that it's a 4-pack or 6-pack of that beer.
Sorry, this is fucking hard to keep a straight face. Dude, just stop, dude. He's so needy. I don't know where he gets that from. Okay. Well, what's the space?
So I'm really curious to see how Grifter go with it. I'd love to get my hands on them. You know, question for you: if that was sort of viable and you could sort of swap in and out your new bespoke Paktech thing with something like that, would you consider it in the business? Or
100%. Like we've been thinking about something like that for quite a while, and I'd played around with the different options, and we'd looked at those kind of what's the word? The brown ones.
Yeah, they look like egg carton kind of material.
And they're not really compostable. They were kind of like if you sent them to the right place, they'd be compostable, and they're not good. Like I had a couple that Hop Nation were using for their limited ones, and you kind of crack one off, it breaks. Like they're just not very good.
They get soggy when they get wet too.
Oh yeah, when they get wet. So yeah, I think if it's a viable option, I think so many people would use it. So I hope it is a viable option. Let's move on here to the next question. Here is and I do have this hard questions segment. Well, how are we going for time? 7:30. We're kind of smashing this out. Yeah. I will get into this one because the IBA have and maybe you've got some thoughts on this. The IBA have put out an announcement saying they're going to launch their community marketing campaign, which I assume means, educating the average beer drinker on the importance of independence. And I guess the question is anyone going to care about that?
Yeah. Do people care about independence?
Yeah.
I care. I'm pretty sure you care. Because we care because we're actually in the independent brewing industry. But does the average regular consumer? It's a tough sell. What's the like I said last week, what's the biggest selling brand of beer in Australia is Great Northern. Why is it? Because people actually think it's a brewing company, and it's local. It has this perception of being local.
I think is it actually that, or is it just when people have the product, they feel a connection, they feel a certain thing. Does it even cross their mind that it's a brewing company? Is it more just like, they think a certain thing, they feel a certain thing, and that's it?
That's it.
Like who knows? Like we used to drink Corona all the time. It was never like it never crossed my mind that Corona was a brewing company. It was just you had the fucking nice little wave on the beach there.
Yeah, it was the beer from where you'd rather be.
Yeah, and that was it.
Right. But Great Northern's marketing is the beer from up there, up here, or something like that. And it actually says on the bottle Great Northern Brewing Company. People, I think in some respects, people do feel a sense of attachment to a brewing company like that. And it's like, the major breweries have done an amazing job at encroaching on and owning the message around craft beer, right?
Yeah.
They've done a great job of it.
This is the really big thing that I think people are missing is like when we got into craft beer and when you got into craft beer, it was in some sense, I don't want to say easy, but it was a situation where the major companies were not making good, interesting beer.
Yes.
So there was a very big difference between what they were making and what we were making, what you were making.
Yeah.
But like you rattled off before, if you go into CUB pub now, good luck starting a brewery and making better beer than Bolter and Pirate Life and all of those, and Stonewood and for like all those brands.
But you've got to think about how we got here, right? So what's your epiphany beer, like the craft beer that got you into craft beer?
It's probably a toss up between Redback and Little Creatures Pale.
Right, both Lion.
Both Lion now.
Well, sorry, CUB. Redback was Matilda Bay. That's CUB.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were.
Sorry, yeah.
And so it's a really good story, and it's
actually what year did Lion sell? I wonder if it was. Sorry, I would say Lion.
Little Creatures were bought by Lion, I think, in 2011, 2012, I think.
Yeah, it would have been well before that. Yeah, so right. Okay. But I wasn't drinking it thinking independent. I was drinking it thinking it was, this beer tastes different to all the other
exactly.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. And what happened, right, is no different to what's happening right now with Stone and Wood, is there's a craft beer company that got really, really big and was taking market share from the majors, and the majors bought it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the last.
No. I think the difference is, well, actually, Little Creatures is an interesting one. I haven't had a Little Creatures Pale Ale for a very long time, but I think the big difference now is that these companies aren't fucking with these breweries. And that was always the thing. It was like they'd buy one of these brands and they'd start fucking with the brand to the point where they just weren't making the same product anymore.
That's what happened with Matilda Bay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not doing that anymore. I mean, maybe Lion didn't do that. Little Creatures may not have been messed with too much, but once kind of like we went to Pirate Life after they built their new brewery and tried some of the beers, they were fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I think once they realized that, let's just buy these brands and not mess with them, then it was a real big problem for craft brewers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But the thing is, right, is about the sort of the independence thing is that, your Epiphany beer, my Epiphany beer was a Matilda Bay beer, it was Alpha Pale Ale, right? And It was independent then, and it got sold in like 2006, 2008.
And these are both beers from Brad, right? From
they are, yeah. Yeah, Brad Woodrow's, yeah, absolutely. Redback and Alpha Pale Ale.
Yeah.
And eventually those beers get so popular that the major breweries buy it, right? And Stone and Wood is no different. It's just an evolution of that. And what that means, right, is that like the major breweries start to own the craft word, the craft brand, because they, and they can do it because they buy them, they keep the brands, they grow them, they put the big marketing dollars and expertise behind them and that sort of thing, and they grow and grow and grow. And the IBA used to be called the CBIA, the Craft Beer Industry Association, before it became the Independent Brewers Association, to try and get that point of difference, right? And then, the market share of independent beer kept going up and up and up. I think we got to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10% or something like that. And that was big enough for one of the major breweries to poke their head up and pay attention, go, there's 1% right there.
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with the growth in the category, not just the overall percent. Like if you look at their general business, I think you mentioned this last week, that like alcohol generally is declining, and that they can see there's a few select categories that are growing very quickly. So I don't know if and it's also just like if you talk about the pub situation, someone goes into a pub. It used to be the case, like it started getting to the point where if you went into a CUB pub, you had an astonishingly good lineup of beers. If you were more sophisticated, that might be an arrogant thing to say, but you're a more sophisticated beer drinker.
Well, you're a sophisticated guy.
Oh, dude, I mean, look at this flannel. I mean, come on. And then you go into Lion Pub and they didn't have a lot to offer. So I think there's a bit of relevance and there's a bit of growth in there. I don't think it's just about the percentage, market share.
When you have a duopoly in any market, and in Australia we have a duopoly with beer, any percentage of market share that's all you've got left. Any percentage of market share that you can buy under a duopoly situation is worth it. Right,
but a percentage market share is current situation, whereas growth is a predictor of future situation.
True.
So if I think that the masterstroke was always going to be who was going to buy Bolter, because CUB buying Bolter at a time when they were just exploding.
Yeah.
And a brand that was not really tied to independence. It seems
like it was built to sell.
It was built and
Bolter was built to sell.
And in hindsight, it kind of seems like the bargain of the century. I mean, I don't know what they paid, but it kind of seems like they did very, very. It kind of seems like the best acquisition that's ever happened in craft beer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you talk about how the major brewers have started to own craft, well, then there has to be some differentiator between, that it's very easy for a big brewery to say, I am a craft brewer. Well, of course you are. You're making beers that are flavorful and have, some level of distinctiveness and all that sort of thing. And so what's left, and the next thing is independence, right? And so you've got independent beer and the Independent Brewers Association. But what point of difference does that actually say to the consumer? And I think that's the real quandary there, right? Independence doesn't equal quality.
Exactly. I mean, right? to be honest, in many respects,
it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, the non-independent breweries, the ones owned by the majors, are fucking really good at quality.
Exactly. They've got it. They've got every opportunity to make a much better higher quality product than
the
small ones.
So what's the message that a consumer is going to sit up and pay attention to make them want to buy an independent beer? And I think that's the thing that the IBA really needs to get their head wrapped around, right?
Or is it just the
it's
case
not quality and it's not price, because independent beer is always more expensive.
Is it a case that the IBA is not the right group for that job?
I think there is a message around the point of difference of independence. I think being local is a very powerful message to consumers.
But see, the majors are owning local as well. I went up to Umundi. Yeah, well, yeah, it's Byron Bay Brewery, and I went to Umundi not that long ago, and it was the fucking coolest place I've ever been to. And they got this pub, which is the coolest pub you'll ever see. The pub's got a brewery in there that's owned by Lion, I think. And you know, it's local. All the locals were enjoying it. So
yeah, and they had no idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
maybe you're right. You were right. It's not. Well, exactly. So it's not quality. It's not local, right? It's not price because independent beer is not cheaper. It's usually more expensive. So what is it?
Yeah, I think we have an identity crisis now, and it was easier in hindsight when we were making better beer than the majors. Now it's going to be much more difficult.
It's changed now. They've caught up.
I think like in terms of marketing beer, I think the story is the important thing. And I think there's a lot of appetite for not like blatant storytelling, like the shackles are broken and now I've got this beer that's like a convict's beer, like not that kind of bullshit, but like legitimate storytelling, which we try to do at Black Ops, but we're not the first people to do it. But there's a legitimate desire in people to get behind other people who are on a journey that they can aspire to and relate to and be part of. And that's
exactly. And how do those people become part of that journey? How do the consumers become part of that journey? They know the people, and that's what the majors can't replicate. So if I was going to say, what's a point of difference with regards to an independent brewery versus the larger breweries, the mega breweries, it's the people. They can't replicate that. They don't have a Govs. They don't have an Eddie. They don't have.
I don't know. They got a Brad Rogers and a Scotty, and so they got some pretty good people.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so Bolter's got Scotty. When was the last time you saw him on the Bolter Instagram?
Today.
Today?
Yeah.
What was he doing on there today?
Cheersing McFanning.
Okay.
No, I don't look. That's the Instagram is just marketing. It's not real life. But I don't know if I agree with that. Like you can't tell me that these big companies can't get good people.
People want to, of course they can, but those, consumers want to know who's making their beer, where it's made, and all that sort of stuff. And I think the point of difference message
our consumers in our kind of craft beer world want to know that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's about taking those people on a journey, right? Because if those Great Northern drinkers are drinking Great Northern because they think Great Northern is a brewing company and there's actual real people behind it, well, then independent brewers have to go a step further to say, yes, we're a brewing company. Here are the people. Here are the actual names of the people behind it.
Right.
Here's what they're doing, and maybe that would be something that's more engaging. I don't profess to have an answer to it or answer to this situation.
Yeah,
but I certainly agree that Australian independent brewers and the IBA now, since the Stoner Wood sale, has an identity crisis that needs to be resolved somehow. What is it that makes people want to drink independent beer?
I think a good starting point is to let Coopers into the IBA, because if the thing is going to be independence, then why are we not celebrating the most independent company?
I'd totally agree. Yeah. And they would bring a raft of, marketing and technical expertise into the IBA to help lift the independent independent brewing industry and that sort of thing. Totally agree with that.
All right. Well, that last kind of story led on to one of my hard questions. So
questions.
That can be. Let's move on to hard questions because we've got a few of those, and then we've got fan questions. There's a lot of questions, but we're pushing on. There's a lot going on here. Episode 2, we're coming up. My first hard question to you, because I legitimately do not know the answer to this question because I've never been able to do it, even with this flano. How do you win an Indies trophy?
That's a really good question. I think if you want to win a trophy in a competition, you have to be prepared, and you have to the brewer should be the person who does the entry into the competition, not the marketing department. Because
based on what?
Well, like if you've got to craft a camp. I say to clients in my paid program, one of the things we talk a lot about is winning awards in competition, right? It's one of the key tenets of my paid program, right? And you can't let the marketing department go and do your entry and put the beer into the right style class, because just because your beer says on the pack, on the bottle or the can, India Pale Ale, doesn't mean that it's an India Pale Ale, right? Yeah. And classic, case in point with regards to that is Hop Hog, right? Who crushed it, year after year after year at the Australian International Beer Awards, was winning trophies, best, but what was it winning trophies for? Not as an India Pale Ale, it was winning it as an American Pale Ale, American style Pale Ale.
Shout out to another classic Aussie craft beer that was sold to one of the
what's Coca-Cola, yeah. And so the brewer needs to do it, because you have to have it's not about the label that's on your beer, because the judge never fucking sees it.
Yeah.
It's about, you have to take an objective look at your liquid and match it up to a style guideline.
Can I add one thing to this?
Yeah,
I am not disagreeing with what you're saying, but the one thing I will add is when we sit around, and we take these awards seriously, like we put a good effort in every time these come around. One thing we do consider is if any of our beers go well in these awards, ideally we want it to be a beer that we're selling a fair bit of. And actually what normally happens is the opposite happens. So like in the Queensland Beer Awards, Code Red's won Champion IPA 2 out of the last 3 years, and we barely ever brew it. Like we never brew Code Red.
Yes.
And Pink Mist, Beach House are the ones that always do well at the ABAs.
Yes.
But
you don't brew that very often.
We never
either.
make those beers. So when we sit around having the conversations, like Govs and Eddie will come to the table with the beers, like it'll be like a lager or something. They'll be like, this is like the best beer we make. And I'll be like, well, that's cool, but it would be really cool if we win an award for East Coast Haze, because that's the beer we're marketing at the moment. And if we get a medal for that, that's going to be really impactful for the business.
When did you win the Champion ALBA Champion Small Brewer? Is that 2016?
2018.
2018?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Eddie and I sat down and we put together your campaign. I come up to HQ and Eddie pumped a few beers into me and we looked at all the beers and we made sure that they went into the right class. And
Beach House was the trophy winner for that.
Beach House, yep, absolutely. Yep. And what happened was we crafted a really good campaign. And that's how I look at it. It's a campaign. And that's the first part, is getting your beers entered into the right class. A really, really common problem we see as judges is beers not matching the words, the style guidelines, right? You have to look at the style guidelines. And then there's part 2 of that is setting up your production plan so that your beers that are susceptible to age come out of the tank at the last possible moment to go into the awards. And I know you guys work very heavily on that, because Eddie and Govs and I did that years and years ago, right?
Yeah.
Was like, get them in the right class, set up your production plan, get them out of the tank at the very last minute, and get them cold to the awards as late as possible on the last day. In fact, I dropped my beers for the TAFE Brewery, the Froth Rookies, out at Chill Logistics. Yeah, that's the name of the TAFE Brewery beer brand. It's called Froth Rookies. That's cool, brand, mate. And and as I was driving out of Chill Logistics, buddy, someone who looked like Raylo driving one of the Black Ops vans was driving in, and
nice. In defense, most of our sales reps look like Raylo, but
everyone looks like Raylo at Black Ops. Right? And it was like, yeah, so that's how you got to play the game. If you've got a big stonking Imperial Stout and that sort of thing, well, that's fine. If you packaged it 6 months ago, it's going to present to a judge perfectly fine because it's not susceptible to age. But hoppy beers and stuff like that do, and so therefore you've got to get them in really, really fresh, and put your best foot forward. And then the third thing that you got to do is to craft your campaign so that you'll win the trophies, right? And so the trophies, so the beers have different style classes, but then the style classes are grouped together. So if you've got, Munich Helles, German Pilsner, Czech Pilsner, Australasian tropical style lager, all these pale lager categories all get grouped under pale lager, right? And there's only one trophy for that. So you can't enter, say, Lay Day and the Oktoberfest Pilsner that you guys have just brewed and all that sort of stuff. That you need to have, in order to get the best brewer trophies, you actually need to have beers in multiple different classes. So the groups of styles, right? And that serves you better. And then so you got the trophies for the champion beer styles. Then you've got the trophies for the champion brewer, small, medium, and large, or however it's split up in the particular show. And then you've got the champion overall beer and the champion overall brewer. And they come from those who've already won trophies. The champion beer comes from a beer that's already run a trophy, so it gets a second trophy. It's the best of the best. Yeah. And the same goes for the champion brewer thing as well. And so you've got to craft your campaign in such a way so that you actually put your best foot forward. It's not really a scattergun approach either. You can't just go and enter 20 beers.
Right. Does it hurt your result if you enter too many that don't do well?
Depends on the competition and how they put together the trophies, right? So AIBAs is a little different to the Indies. So that in the AIBAs, there's like a point system. It's like your top 4 beers, and a gold medal gets 7 points, and a silver medal gets 5 points, bronze medal gets 3 points. They add them up in the highest average, and all that sort of stuff, and there's countbacks and all that sort of thing. And so you can't just go play the numbers game, right? Because that's not going to work to your advantage either. So you've got to pick the right number of beers to enter that you're going to put your best foot forward, that you've carefully selected the style class category that you're going to enter it in, that gets to the competition as fresh as possible, so that you put your best foot forward. That's why it's called a camp. That's why I call it a campaign, because that's exactly what you got to do.
Nice. On that topic, since this is the hard questions segment, because I was working on this document during the week and I was looking back through all of our last photos, and I was trying to find this photo of me, Eddie, and Govs from that 2018 Aber Awards, and there's a photo of Eddie and Govs hugging. I'm on the other side of them, so you don't actually even see me in the photo other than my arm is around one of them.
Yeah.
And they used it the following year, I think, to promote the Abers, which was really cool. But after you said
you got chopped out.
No. Well, I got chopped out, but that's not the point. That's fine. After you said last week, people weren't that excited for us. I was looking at that photo and looking at all the other people in the crowd just to look at their facial expressions, and just to see if it was kind of like at the Oscars where someone wins and you're like, fuck that person. But I will tell you,
background going.
I will tell you, the facial expressions seemed a bit like genuinely like, who the fuck are these guys? But like smiley.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
So,
I apologize if I was like made you feel weird about it and that sort of thing. That's I'm off in Hendo world and I make all these weird observations of the world and yeah.
No, it's good. But the next time, if there is a next time when we win a trophy, I'm not going to be focused at all on that. I'm just going to be looking around and being like, do these fuckers like us or not?
Bring it.
Right. Do you have a hard question for me?
Yeah, man. Crowdfunding.
Oh yeah.
You're a massive fan of it. And probably the brewery that does the most crowdfunding is Brewdog and that sort of thing. There's a lot of varying opinions about Brewdog's crowdfunding and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know, and look, I'm pretty indifferent when it comes to Brewdog. A lot of people love them, a lot of people hate them. I just another brewery as far as I'm concerned. They just operate a business model. Lots of people say that the level of crowdfunding that Brewdog have done is representative of a Ponzi scheme. They keep crowdfunding all the time. What's your thoughts on that? Because your crowdfunding for Black Hops has been quite limited. There was, you had the first one when we weren't allowed to do equity crowdfunding, where it was to fund the bar, and then there's been two rounds after that. I think
there's been one. There's been one.
Just one,
crowdfunding
right?
round. Yeah.
And but your crowdfunding's been very limited, but Brewdog have really grown their business on the back of multiple rounds of crowdfunding and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that model? Is it a Ponzi scheme? Where are they going with it? Where does it end?
Yeah. I think generally, I think that crowdfunding seems to be getting a little bit of negative publicity in our industry because people who didn't realize how funding worked before are now realizing how it works, and because it's public, because they have access to all the information. But, if you take crowdfunding out of the equation, then how have all of these other breweries gotten their money to make beer? I mean, it's only one of three ways. They had money to start with, and in our case, we didn't. Like, we had enough to build a very small brewery in Burleigh, and not even enough for that. They borrowed money from a bank, which never happens because banks are impossible. Or they got equity. They gave up equity in return for money, and they did it privately behind closed doors, and no one ever knew what happened or how. I mean, you can check on ASIC who owns shares, but you never know about the rounds. You never know the public information behind it. So I feel like it's like, now that it's public, it's copping a lot of heat. I think crowdfunding is great, and I've always been a huge fan of it. The Brewdog thing is interesting. I do think there's a point where it's enough is enough.
It's excessive. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I think about it with our brand, because I don't want to get I am a little bit upset that the Brewdog brand has been a bit tarnished in the last few years. Like Brewdog was always a brand to me that I aspired, I watched their TV thing. I learned about crowdfunding from them. I learned about valuations and all of that stuff. And even just the stuff they were doing on the TV show about brewing beer in different locations. Like, I was watching this stuff back in the day. They were like the pinnacle of craft beer for me. When they announced they were moving to Brisbane, I was so stoked, and I am stoked. I think it's fucking awesome there. I think they've done an amazing job. And their beer is great. But I do think maybe it is a little bit justified, where when they come out with a crowdfunding round at $100 million valuation for a strong brand, but a business that's pretty new. And they've done that many rounds and they've raised that much money. I feel like at this point, a bit of scrutiny is okay.
Yes.
I think leave COVID out of it. I mean, for a business like Brewdog, I don't even know how they would get through this whole COVID thing, but they seem to be, from what I read the other day about Brewdog in Brisbane, they seem to be going pretty well for a business that's not that old.
It's Brewdog Brisbane is their most profitable brew pub in the world.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It goes very, very well for Brewdog.
Yeah, but I think a bit of scrutiny is okay. But I don't think that needs to reflect on crowdfunding. I do think there's a point where a business needs to kind of go public or do something else after that many rounds. And for Brewdog, I think the plan is to go public, at least from what I've seen. And I think that would be fantastic. If they get through COVID, end up going public, and everyone who invested has the opportunity to sell their shares for more than they bought them for, argument's over.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that'll happen?
That's what I hope.
Do you reckon they'll IPO or?
Yeah.
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 Okay. You have to. There's a lot of venture capital money as well as the crowdfunding money behind
Yes.
Brewdog as well
and
at
I
very,
think,
very high interest rates, and that's got to get paid back at some stage.
Yeah, and I think once you take that money, and that's like with that whole conversation around independence, like we've managed at this point to avoid taking money from venture capitalists, and that's why crowdfunding can be good, because it gives you the opportunity to get some money from people who are not going to be desperate to sell you a business. And if any of these VC firms are giving you money, it's because they want to sell your business and get more money later on.
Yes, that's right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Business is business. But if you don't want that, then there's not many options. And I think crowdfunding is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So crowdfunding is good. Just don't do it excessively.
Yeah, I think
because it kind of waters it down, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And full disclosure, we are going to do another crowdfunding, because I think I've always thought it was a great fit for our brand. And we need money. It's, it just blows my mind how much this shit costs. You told me this I remember when we first wrote the book, and you're like, I'll do the foreword, and you wrote,
yes.
and you kind of told me, like, this is how much a tank of beer costs, and you don't get paid until 3 months afterwards. And I'm like, okay, well, a couple of grand, yeah, fine. But like once you're at our scale, it's fuck me dead. It's a lot of money.
I know that forward got edited as well, because I was like, I was very, very facetious when I wrote the draft, and then I don't know if it was you or you had an editor or something like that, but I was like, I sort of said one of the sentences is like, the things you got to worry about is quality and money and marketing and money, and it was like all these different things, and money was every second one,
right?
And I think someone had edited it going, that can't be right.
Bit repetitive.
Change it out. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately,
it's super important, and I get it as your business grows, and it's just, the thing is, right, is that Black Hops is a successful business, and I would say at the point that you're on now, it's profitable. Yeah,
it has been, but to be honest, to get from where we are to the next upgrade, it's going to go back into not being profitable, because the kind of things we have to do to make this happen is
and that's the thing a lot of people just don't understand. There's a stark difference between profitability and working capital required to grow your business, right? Yeah. And so when a crowdfunding happens, or an IPO or venture capital money and all sorts of stuff, that's not for profitability. That's cash to go make more beer and pay more excise and
right. It's not just working capital. It's not just exactly. It's going to say it's not just working capital. It's equipment, and like in an ideal world with something like equipment, you can generally get finance for it. So if you buy a car, I think we can all agree that buying a car generally is probably not the best investment, but from a bank's point of view, they can sell a car.
Yes.
So they'll generally give you money for the car.
Yes.
In our history, it's been really hard for us to get any kind of debt finance from a bank, because they don't know what we're doing. They don't understand whether or not you can sell a fermenter. But I mean, I can tell you right now, if you had some fermenters, you can definitely sell them.
Of course.
So yeah, that debt finance is quite tricky. And it's cash flow is a real big thing in terms of like, you're making beer, you're not getting paid for quite a while. You need that cash flow, but then the equipment stuff is a whole new level. Like our one thing that blows my mind is the packaging upgrade that we're doing at BH2. So BH2 now is about 4,000. I think when we get the 2 new sheds, about 4,000 square meters. First brewery was about 200 square meters. When we went to BH2, it was 1,500. So going from HQ to BH2 was a massive upgrade. It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. It was a year of sleepless fucking nights. But the packaging room alone that we're upgrading to is more expensive than the whole of BH2.
Yeah, like for rent and the equipment, or both, or
equipment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just equipment.
Yes.
Yeah. Just once you go from the sort of $250,000 inline 6-head canning line, 8-head canning line to a rotary 24-head Italian
12,000 cans an hour and lots of stuff.
And everything else. It's $3 million at least. And that's more than we spent on the entire brewery. And that's just one piece of equipment. Like that's just one part of the business. Another thing people don't think about is I'm going on a rant here, but
rant away.
Is how, like, if we're going to justify the expense of this gigantic packaging line, we're going to get all these new tanks. How are we going to make all this beer, and how are we going to keep all the staff satisfied? So we've hired in the last like 3 months. We've almost doubled our brew team. I think we're at 19 now between brewers, cellar staff, and that whole production unit. I think we're at 19 people, and we're not making that much more beer. It's all in preparation for growing into the space. And there's no way you can be profitable doing that. And there's no way a bank is going to to get money out of a bank for that is tough. It's a tough story. So
they want hard assets that they can sell if things go pear-shaped and that sort of thing. They want your house on the line or your first child.
We're long past that. If Black Ops doesn't work out, I'm losing everything. But no, I get it. And then there are some, that I would consider, sort of riskier forms of debt as well. I mean, I know that in your, in your part of your operating capital funding is using debtor financing and that sort of thing, which you've been pretty open about. I am not a fan of debtor financing at all. Right. I know this was a dark part of your history.
My history of debtor financing is very, very, very bad experience, to I can't really say some of the things on this podcast because I can get in a bit of trouble for it, but it was a bad experience. And you've got to and for some businesses it's right, and I'm very sure that you've made some very careful consideration.
We've actually never used it. Continue, I'll get into it, but
right.
But go on.
But you got to it's crack cocaine for businesses, and if you get it, you got to grow and plan in the future not to have it. It's bad, scary stuff.
Yeah, no, we got a debtor finance facility, never drew on it because we never needed to. But now we're with a different bank, and now we feel like we need it again, and we might look at it again. Right. But there's a lot of these instruments.
So you're saying you had the facility, but you just never used it?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's other instruments though. There's like Convertible Notes is one we signed up for when we were just desperate for money. And we gave some new investors the opportunity to buy in, basically they buy into that valuation, but it doesn't convert to 2 years' time. And our business has gone, in terms of valuation, our business has gone fucking ballistic. By the time it converts, they're getting the absolute deal of the century, and they're getting interest the whole time. So that was a bad one. Luckily, it wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
And another one we did was a leasing arrangement with our first canning machine that we're still paying for. That at the time was the best decision we ever made, because we went from mobile canning, which was awesome to start with, but we were then making so much beer we needed our own machine. But we're still paying for that thing, and that it was $100,000 machine. Like these days, we'd fucking probably just pay for it, in one hit.
Yeah.
But you do what you do to get through, and if you don't make it, I fully understand. If you do, it's it's a bit of luck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very complex and scary the bigger it gets. It
is. I hope no one's listening to this who wants to start a brewery, because they're probably not going to be too keen to.
The numbers get big really quickly, and you just got to grin and bear it and roll it and grow.
Yeah.
What's the questions we got, man?
Well, I do have 3 questions, but we've been going for about an hour 20. So do you want to wrap it up, or do you want to hit some of these
let's
questions?
wrap it up and we can hit those questions next time, man. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Episode 3. These are fun, man. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, me too. It's been good. Yeah. Get 2 or 3 more people on the email list. You never know. We might even send an email out.
Right, mate, if we get a dozen, mint.
All right. Cheers, Hendo.
Too easy, man. See you next time.
See you next week. All right, I did the stop video.
You stop video, but you stop recording. No. You're still recording.
Oh, shit. Okay.
You press stop video, but not stop recording.
Okay, I'm so fucking anxious about
you can edit that.